Most of us will struggle with a regret or two at some point in our lives. But you know what's even more common? Having a regret in the RC hobby. Our hobby is extremely rewarding due to its difficulty, and we're talking about more than just flying a plane. There's a wealth of information out there that can sometimes be impossible as a beginner to understand. It's very easy to make mistakes that turn into regrets in this hobby, but with this video, we're hoping to make those mistakes a little harder to come by. Number 1. First-person view, aka FPV. FPV is great. It's super fun, and if you're starting to feel the burnout coming on, trying a new niche in our hobby can reignite that spark within you. But we've seen a trend. A fixed-wing pilot wakes up one day and suddenly thinks FPV is the coolest thing in the world ever. So they go balls deep and invest $1,500 into a mint setup. They have fun for a few weeks and then just never pick it up again. We can't even explain just how common this scenario is. Our advice isn't to skip the FPV phase, but it is important to keep in mind that there's a fair chance that you are not going to stick with it for a long time if you're coming from the line-of-sight world first. And as a result, maybe it's best to not buy top-of-the-line gear before you know it's your thing. The good news is, with so many people buying and then quitting FPV, there's usually a number of great used deals that can be found on marketplaces online at any given time. Number 2. Bells and whistles. On the topic of spending a lot of money on expensive equipment you might not care to use next month, the telemetry phase is another one we often see. It's really cool to have your radio call out what RPM the motor's spinning at every 5 seconds, then your altitude, all while your radio recites the script to the B-movie for a month. Then, one day, you'll wake up and wonder why you spent so much time and money on these bells and whistles that end up becoming annoyances and distractions. We can't stop you from doing the inevitable, but hey, we can say we tried. Gimmick? You decide. Number 3. Underestimating weather. So you got a few good flights under your belt and it's a beautiful sunny afternoon. Only thing is, it's windy. But hey, your plane came with a gyro and those do great in the wind, right? So you go up and start panicking as you realize the plane doesn't travel in the direction the nose is pointed, and you've realized you've signed yourself up for a bad time. The wind isn't the only variable to consider when making the decision whether you should fly. Location is important too. Is your field surrounded by trees? What about nearby structures? On a windy day, these trees and structures cause what is referred to as mechanical turbulence, a unique small-scale localized form of wind shear. Wind shear is a sudden change in wind speed and/or direction, and long story short, it's bad news for airplanes. They can make your plane climb, or worse, descend rapidly, with little to no warning. The descent is the dangerous one, which is caused by a headwind disappearing out of nowhere, leading to a stall if you don't react quick enough. The important thing here is to understand your own personal limitations when it comes to weather and flying. Haven't flown in any wind before? Maybe consider giving it a shot when it's blowing 5 knots instead of 25. But if you don't listen to us, then you should probably pay attention to this next part since your model will be in a lot of pieces, and sometimes those pieces just can't be glued back together, like a motor mount. Only you don't have a CNC machine, access to materials, or a 3D printer. That's where our friends from PCBWay come in, and they're today's sponsor. They offer a variety of services, from PCB production to assembly and even 3D printing. But it doesn't stop there. They have sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and even CNC machining. If you need to redesign a motor mount or manufacture parts, there's no better service out there. They're also great if you're into scratch building and need custom parts. Their service is extremely easy to use and can get you a quote right at your fingertips. If you're interested, please check out the link in our description. Special thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Number 4. Dismissing foamies. Specifically, we're talking about Twisted Hobbies planes. They're so simple, you might question how it could be fun compared to your Timber X that has altimeter callouts so everyone knows how low you can hover. But that's exactly what makes simple great. Struggling to learn how to do a knife edge with your timber so you can only practice it 1.5 miles high where you can't even see what the plane's doing because you're afraid of stuffing it? Twisted Hobbies planes are known for being EPP beaters. They're designed to be planes you're okay with crashing. They're the perfect aircraft to learn new skills on. Not to mention, they're just plain fun to bash the sticks around on. They even fit in any car without disassembly. We'd recommend everyone have at least one in their fleet, because you never know when you need a plane you don't care about for a fun fly event, to fly in the backyard at night, or to practice things you saw someone do on YouTube. Number 5. Not joining a club or community. Our models are easier than ever to fly. If someone sees a video of a cool RC plane and decides they'd like to give the hobby a shot, they can just go online, click a few buttons, spend a little money, and a self-leveling, self-landing airplane will be at their doorstep in a few days. Sometimes, with those aids, pilots can get away without having any flight instruction and be fine. but this doesn't mean that a club wouldn't benefit that type of beginner. You'd be missing out on a huge part of the community that helps make this hobby what it is. Forget a tool, a club member likely has what you need. Obliterated your prop, a member likely has a spare. Need repair advice? We're sure there's someone there happy to talk your ear off. Clubs provide a support system that helps people stay in the hobby. It makes this sometimes frustrating hobby ever so slightly less frustrating with the support of a community that has your back. We will be the first to admit that not all clubs out there are great, but most of them are. If you've had a bad experience at one, give another a shot. There's nothing out there that feels as great as when you found the one. Number 6. Not buying a plane you wanted, and then it gets discontinued, and then only appears on eBay once a year, where you get outbid because you refuse to pay $2,000 for a UMX. Nuff said. Number 7. The wrong glue. A lot of people get into this hobby and think that glue is glue, right? And someone told them just to glue it with super glue. Cyanoacrylate. CA. I mean, this one says CA on the label, so what could go wrong? The thing is, it's a UMX plane, and if you use regular CA on it, it'll literally melt the foam. Our advice is, before you glue anything, make sure you're confident that you're not going to melt the plane to the ground. Number 8. The 80% rule. You did a little bit of practicing and a lot of crashing with the Twisted Hobbies planes we mentioned before, and suddenly you're a halfway decent stick and your club wants you to fly a noon demo with your giant scale 3D plane while everyone eats. There's nothing worse than crashing that plane in front of a large crowd of people. This is where the 80% rule comes into play. Do you normally torque roll a foot off the ground? Maybe stick to 5 feet or a couple meters off the ground when performing. With adrenaline flowing and a crowd of people behind us, we often make mistakes because we get into our own heads with the nerves. Or maybe you're the next Jace and that doesn't even apply to you. Either way, not performing at your absolute max skill is a good way to prevent a crash that will keep you up at night for years. Number 9. Cheaping out on hardware. That's super cool that the build you spent months working on was completed $40 under budget because you got an ESC off AliExpress. We're so proud of you, and we're going to laugh our asses off as we watch your plane burn to the ground. Okay, we're jokingly being dicks here, but the point is, saving a few bucks, especially when it comes to expensive builds, can create a lot more problems down the road. Wouldn't you rather buy an ESC everyone knows is dependable for a little more, rather than having to start your build over from scratch because it literally burned to the ground? Number 10. Fail-safes. This is something you forget to set up once. A lot of people think that there's no point in setting one up because, hey, if I lose radio signal, my plane's gone anyways. Which is sort of true, but having your plane go full throttle into a house versus going into an idle spin above the empty field you're flying at does make a difference. Safety third. Not only that, but it's important to have a fail-safe for when you're on the ground too. Eventually, there will come a time where you forgot your plane was plugged in and you turn off your radio. If your plane's unrestrained, that means you could take off into the pits toward poor innocent bystanders. The point is, take a peek at the manual for your transmitter and set a fail-safe up. It's easy and can make you avoid a costly mistake. Number 11. Not buying tail-heavy merch before the summer drop-ins, like the Bailey mugshot shirt, which will be disappearing early in August. Special thanks to our channel supporters. Trust us, there's a lot more regrets that can be had in this hobby that weren't covered in this video, such as pulling up when inverted at the worst possible time. When in doubt, roll out. If there's some we missed, let us know down below in the comments, and maybe we'll do a part 2 of this video. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you're a balsa boy who enjoys watching foam eaters melt their plane to the ground with the wrong glue. Or hit subscribe if you're interested in watching us learn our own lessons. Happy landings, bounce one on for us, and we'll catch you next week with a new upload.